What's going on, Internet? Samwise here from Kaiju Hunters, back again, finally, with a deck tech of my JimmiesRustled Priest deck that I've been running up the ladder the past couple of seasons. This season it's not been as effective as it was in the past, mainly because there isn't any bullshit aggro, really, on the ladder anymore, which is kind of good, to be honest. But I really love playing the deck in its height of prowess, and I have made some upgrades to kind of make it a bit more viable and more a land run ruled by druids and rogues and whatnot. So let's go through the list and see what we got going. This is version 1.2 of the deck. Version 1.1 had a Sylvanas in it, which is basically the main change. If you like to check out the earlier version of the deck, there are daily duels in the description that you can check out, but I will be doing some example duels after this with this deck on the ladder, so you can see how it works for reals. Right at the top, well, actually right at the top, let's check out the mana curve. It's kind of all over the place, less of a mountain, more of a trunk of a curve, and that kind of works all right for the deck. You kind of have stuff to do all over the place, and you're not really rushing a bunch of stuff out at the start. You know, you're gonna try and one-for-one your opponent, and that's really what the deck tries to do. Circle of Healing, right at the start. Circle of Healing is mainly there for two things: a single combo off of a Northshire Cleric to draw a couple of cards if you can for free, essentially, and mainly to combo with an Auchenai Soulpriest to nuke everything for 4, which is a really good board wipe against a really aggressive opponent if you can get the 2 cards in hand. So I would suggest, if you're running the deck, keep this in your opening hand, as dumb as it seems. Same with the Soulpriest, and if you get both of them, then you're gravy. You're all solid for a turn 4 board wipe. I've used it a couple of times to heal up my own stuff, but you really got to be wary about it healing your opponent's stuff, which is kind of the downside of the entire thing. So I don't actually use it too much, but it is a really good. It's really necessary to be in there. Like, you gotta have 2 copies because you got to draw it with the Soulpriest. Holy Smite, just very simple nuke. Kill a 3/2, kill a Knife Juggler, kill a Raptor, something like that. Or just, you know, put in a little bit more damage. It's a Holy Smite, what do you want to do? Power Word Shield. Good. Doesn't excel in this deck because it's not really a creature-based deck. Like, you really gotta find something really solid and meaty to put it on. Like, the best things to put it on is your top tier Abominations and Sunwalkers, your big taunts, just to get more health on them. But it's not as bad putting on a Northshire Cleric at the start of the game on turn 2, or turn 1 coin, turn 2 Northshire Cleric. You can set up, you get yourself a nice 1/5. You draw a card, and the next turn you can ping something. Usually they don't have something with 5 attack in turn 2, or they're going to waste 2 cards getting rid of your Northshire Cleric, which they will do. Speaking of Northshire Cleric, 2 copies of them. Main kind of draw engine of the deck, as well as the Thought Steals later on. But once it gets going, it'll get going. You know, if you played Priest before, you know how powerful this thing can be. Just drawing cards all day. Like, even to the point, like, I've been sort of decked a couple of times by myself and by my opponent healing things. Like, a Circle of Healing can be a bad kind of thing, but for 1 mana and 2 cards for a combo that'll draw you a bunch of cards, it's really, really good. It'll also sap a lot of heat from your opponent. Like, your opponent's not going to let Northshire Cleric dick about for too long, so put it out there and let it sap some heat, which is something that I do quite often. Shadow Word Pain, kill some aggro at the start of the game. Don't bother holding on to it. Just, if there's something that you can kill with this thing, then just kill it. Like, this deck really excels to, like, the mid-late game of things. You don't want it to go too long because they're going to play their bigger stuff and you can't deal with that, but Shadow Word Pain, kill a Knife Juggler, kill a Gurubashi Berserker or something, you know? Get rid of them shit. 6 Swampoos, 3/2, kills a weapon. Same thing, I kind of run these in all my decks, eventually. I find that I kind of get back and need to do it, because boy, I've had some matches without this thing in my deck, and opponent plays Gore Howl and just can't get rid of it. And just keeps 1-for-1ing all my stuff, but if I had a Swampoos, different story. You know, you can really feel out what your opponent's playing for this one. Of course, like, they might not be playing any weapons at all, you could be playing a Priest or a Mage, so just throw it out there. Get yourself 3/2 for 2 on the board and start hitting things for, you know, as much as you can. Wild Pyromancer. Not as good as it used to be. There's not as many weenie rush decks on the ladder these days. More druids and things with meatier health. So dealing 1 damage to all minions isn't really a good idea, except you can kind of work it with a priest when you're dealing damage to your own stuff. You got to rush a cleric, you can draw some cards, that's fine. But there's quite often that I just throw him out as a 3-2, and you know, he does the job of a 3-2 and hits your opponent in the face a couple of times and dies to some removal really early, or trades with a bigger taunt creature. Like he's not as good shit as he used to be, so I can see him definitely coming out. Maybe for Crazed Alchemist. Crazed Alchemist is pretty good in the priest deck when you got like your Shadow Word Deaths and all that running about, and do some fluffy on their health and attack for your own benefit. But he is about as dead in my hand as the Pyromancer is, so I'm not entirely sure how this is going to go yet. But I'm still seeing some aggro decks, so I'd keep the Pyromancer for the moment. Single Shadow Word Death, because 2's too many and none is not a good idea. The deck doesn't really have a ton of things at getting rid of really big minions, but thankfully like the meta's not really into that right now. It doesn't kill a Ysera, but that doesn't really matter. It will kill things like Ragnaros and, you know, like the top end minions that your opponent's going to have. I did run big game hunters as well in this deck at one point, but that was way too much. Like, I was seeing less minions of that sort of size, of 7+, and more sort of like 5+. If you're lucky, your opponent will run like 1 or 2, but not a whole ton. And onto Thoughtsteal. Very amazing card. The priest deck is kind of like, you take stuff from your opponent that your own deck doesn't have, and if you're very lucky, Thoughtsteal will come through for you and nab you things like Ancients of War and Pyroblasts, shit like that, which has happened, by the way, a couple of times. So I wouldn't knock Thoughtsteal at all off this list. In fact, I would even play that other one, Mind Vision, in this deck if I had the slots, because that's kind of the mantra of this deck. If you're, you know, you can shit with your heals, which we'll see later on, but stealing stuff from your opponent that your own deck doesn't have is how this deck usually gets in a win. So Thoughtsteal, amazing. I would do it kind of as early as you can, unlike Mind Vision, which you kind of like hold to the late game so you can steal some good meaty stuff off their hands. Like just Thoughtsteal immediately before they can start running good stuff out of their deck, and you'll probably get lucky and get something good twice. Earthring Farseer, mainly put her in the deck to begin with, because she was a 3 damage nuke with an Auchenai Soulpriest in play. But she's seen a lot more play later on, like putting her out there to heal up a taunt guy after the taunt guy's ran into something, or even heal up yourself against a particularly annoying aggressive deck. Sort of keeping yourself in the game is a good idea. Shadow Menace. Only 1 copy. 2's way too much. This thing can be dead in my hand for most of the game, but against a really good aggressive deck, like, take something of theirs and throw it into something else, and at best you'll get 2 kills out of a 4 mana card, which is very solid. Usually, most of the time though, you'll be stealing something from their back row and throwing it into a big taunter that they've got, and then following it up with a Holy Smite to kill off the guy. I've done that to a bunch of Ascension Shieldmasters. It's just sort of kind of what happens. But I did run 2 for a while as well, but that was way too much. Like, half the time it really was just super dead in my hand. So one's kind of okay. Like, you'll get a hit out of something. Even if it is in your hand most of the game, your opponent's going to have minions with 3 attack or less in their deck. It's just kind of the way things is. Auchenai Soulpriest, kind of the central core of the other mantra of the deck. If one mantra is stealing stuff from your opponent that your own deck doesn't have, then Auchenai Soulpriest is turning your heals into super duper nukes. 0 mana for 4 damage to everything is a lot better than 0 mana for 4 heals to everything, and Earthring Farseer like is so much better when she's doing 3 damage instead of healing 3 damage. I did consider running that voodoo guy. What's it called? Voodoo Doctor. Just for like a 1 mana 2 power nuke, but unfortunately you only get 2 Soul Priests in your deck, and you kind of got to be careful with these. I've ran them out before and sort of found myself near the end of the game like, oh crap, what do I do? So just sort of hold on to it. Always wait, I would say, to player when you've got something to combo off of it. Like if you're at 6 mana, you know, use your hero power to nuke something as well as player, or be at 7 mana, play her and a do or the Ring Farseer to nuke something. But if you just sort of run out yourself, she's sort of a 3/5 that kind of gets in your way. Also, be very careful and make sure that she does eventually die, so you can get back to healing yourself. I defeated a priest last night. The only reason I was able to defeat him was because I kept his own Soulpriest alive, and he couldn't. I made it so that he couldn't kill it, just so he could not get his hero power back to keep healing himself back up. I was at 30 life. I was perfectly fine. You know, he could nuke me all day long. But you gotta be careful with this thing. It's quite dangerous. But mainly it is there, like I said earlier, 4 mana, 2-card combo to nuke everything in the field for 4. Solid stuff. Spellbreaker, because the deck is kind of anti-meta in general, got to have some silence in there. Spellbreaker is probably the best one because you can get a creature out of it as well. If I had the space in the deck, I would totally run Master Spell. But there isn't really a ton of amazing effects on the ladder right now on creatures that you kind of want to get rid of. Like, just Spellbreak something annoying, usually is what what it comes down to. Like, I'm not really Spellbreaking Ysera's or anything like that. And usually you get rid of, like, a Sunwalker's Taunt and Divine Shield at the same time. You kind of get a 2-for-1 out of that. So it's good. I would say it's very necessary to the deck. Speaking of necessary, Holy Nova. Wow, it's really bad AoE. Like, it's probably the worst one in the game, I would say, just because it's so weak and it costs so much. Like, by the time you get to 5 mana, your opponent's going to be playing things with like 3-4 health if they're being particularly aggressive. It only really works against super duper aggro decks that are going to throw lots and lots of weenies at you. You're going to want to just nuke everything and heal yourself up a bit. Be careful playing that with Soulpriest out, because that does deal 2 damage to all your own minions and all your enemy minions as well. I have done that by accident a couple of times. Abomination is the original anti-aggro taunt creature, and he is really there to service all your needs when it comes to aggressive warlock decks. And like aggressive paladin decks as well, actually, he's really good at that. If you take note his attack power and his effect, anything that attacks him will be dealt 6 damage in that turn, if they're able to kill him. Which is usually the case. He's only really bad when he gets silenced, and he will get silenced quite a lot, because that is a hell of a thing for aggro decks to deal with, especially hunter decks. They'll be Iron Beak Owling your Abomination all day. But he's solid, like he's a solid 4/4. He'll get in there for some damage if your opponent leaves him alone, and don't be afraid just to have him sort of sit there and you beat your opponent in the face a bit while he's like I can't play any more creatures because they'll just die, and I don't want to attack the thing because then they'll just die. And it's very good. It's a very good card. Faceless Manipulator is okay. Going back to the first pillar, mantra, whatever of the deck of stealing shit for your deck that your opponent's deck has that your own doesn't. That's kind of what he's there for. He'll copy Ysera's and Ancients of War all day. Just start keeping in your hand. You know. Don't run it too bad. Like I wait to the sort of mid-late game, so your opponent plays something super juicy. Sort of look at him in the same mentality that you would look at a mind control. Like, you're gonna want to wait for your opponent to play something really nice and solid to steal off of them. Like, you know, Ysera's and Ancient of Wars and Sunwalkers and that sort of higher tier level of stuff. Generally, my rule for him: don't copy anything that isn't less than his own mana cost. Like, 5 mana, okay, 6 plus, excellent. You're getting a good trade out of that. Of course, like, you don't get the Battlecry ability, so that can come into effect as well. Like Ancient of Lore, you're probably not going to want to copy, because you're not going to get to draw 3 cards off your own Face Manipulator, unfortunately. Cabal, Shadow Priest, one off of them as well, because they work kind of half of the time. The same sort of realm as Shadow Madness. Like, the best thing you can steal with this is a Gurabashi Berserker. Which I think is a 5-mana card. Yes, I was correct. That is 100% the best thing to steal with this. I have stolen a couple of turtles as well in my time, but most of the time I find that she comes into play when your opponents, when it's like the end of the game and they're top decking stuff and just sort of playing it out and like, oh, come on man, just give me something good for a deck, and then they're playing their 2/2s or whatever, and you're just gonna be like, nah, no, just take that. It's mine. I wouldn't keep her in your hand too long though. It doesn't look like that's gonna happen. Just play her out. Like she's a 4/5. She's like Yeti sized for 6 mana instead of 4. So it's not as great there, but I would say it's a nice solid card for this particular deck. And right at the top we got a Sunwalker, because I was getting hit on all day, every day, by big things, and I needed something with taunt that could take 2 hits, basically, and that's what Sunwalker does. The Divine Shield is the best thing about her, to be honest. But as you can see, no super powerful things in my own deck. Nothing greater than 4 power, because like I say, stealing stuff from your opponent's deck is certainly the thing to do. Hopefully I'll maybe find some room for some Mind Visions and later versions of the deck, but after I do some tests I'm probably going to retire it for a while, because it's not really in place on the ladder right now, being January 2014. But it might come back, we'll see. So, Internet, if you like the deck, or if you have some comments, leave them in the comment place. Give me a thumbs up if you do like the deck. I'm a bit out of practice at doing this. Like and subscribe for more videos, check out our Facebook page, and I'll see you later. Also, stick around and check out links in the description for example duels, which I'm about to go and record right now. Alright, goodbye.